Hello and welcome back to our channel, where we explore the fascinating world of rare coins, vintage stamps, and collectibles that hold a piece of history in every corner. In today's episode, we're diving deep into the story behind one of Britain's most famous stamps, the halfpenny green stamp featuring King George V. We'll explore its historical background, its unique design features, collector interest, and most importantly, its value in today's stamp market, all explained in simple and clear detail. So if you're a collector, a history enthusiast, or just someone who wants to learn more about vintage treasures, make sure to watch till the end. You might be holding something quite valuable in your collection. Let's begin by going back in time. This stamp dates back to the era of King George V, who ruled from 1910 to 1936. Known as the stamp collecting king, George V wasn't just a ruler, he was a passionate philatelist himself. In fact, his personal stamp collection became one of the most valuable and well-documented in the world. That's why stamps from his reign are not only historically significant but also carry deep meaning for collectors around the globe. Now, let's take a close look at the design of this particular stamp. The halfpenny green stamp features a side portrait of King George V facing left, enclosed in a beautifully engraved oval frame. Above the king's head sits the imperial state crown, symbolizing the British monarchy. The stamp is flanked on both sides by the denomination 1/2 in the upper corners, and below that, we see the words postage and revenue. This tells us that the stamp could be used both for mailing purposes and for official fiscal transactions. At the bottom, in bold serif letters, is the word halfpenny. At a time when the British Empire spanned across continents, stamps served not only as postage but also as tools of diplomacy and symbols of national pride. The halfpenny green stamp was widely circulated throughout the UK and its colonies, making it a common sight in everyday life, but today, its legacy lives on through collectors. Now, here's an important point: although this stamp was mass-produced, not all examples are equal. Some stamps are common and inexpensive, while others are rare and highly valuable. The difference depends on several key factors, which we'll explore now. First, we have condition. Condition is everything in stamp collecting. A stamp that is clean, uncreased, and has intact perforations is worth much more than one that is torn, stained, or heavily cancelled. Stamps in mint condition, meaning they were never used and still have their original gum on the back, are always in high demand. A mint halfpenny green stamp can sell for $150 to $300, while a used one might fetch $100 to $500, depending on the quality. Second, rarity and variety. Some halfpenny green stamps have special printing errors, such as inverted watermarks, double impressions, or misaligned perforations. These rare variations are much more valuable. For example, a stamp with a printing error can be worth anywhere from $1,000 to several $100s, especially if certified by a professional philatelic society. That's why collectors always examine the watermark on the back of the stamp using watermark fluid or a backlight. The watermark pattern can indicate which series the stamp belongs to and help identify rare varieties. Third, the postmark. Surprisingly, a used stamp with a clear, readable postmark from a rare or historic location can also be more valuable than a generic one. For example, if your halfpenny green stamp was postmarked during a special event or from a military base, it could have added historical interest that increases its price. Now let's talk about the current market value. In 2024, stamp collecting remains a thriving hobby. While the number of collectors has decreased slightly in Western countries, interest is growing in countries like India, China, and across Africa. This global interest is keeping demand high, especially for stamps from the British Empire. Let's break down the market value of the halfpenny green stamp in more detail. A common used stamp in fair condition typically sells between $100 and $300. A very fine used stamp with a neat cancellation might be worth $500 to $1,000. A mint condition stamp, never used and with full gum, could sell for $1,500 to $3,000. A rare variety, like an inverted watermark or printing error, could fetch $1,000 to $5,000 or more if authenticated. A well-centered, certified example with perfect perforations might be auctioned for $10,000 or higher, depending on the market. Most sales take place on platforms like eBay, Delcamp, and Stanley Gibbons, as well as through local stamp dealers and philatelic auctions. For rare stamps, collectors prefer stamps that are certified by recognized organizations, like the Royal Philatelic Society London or the Philatelic Foundation in the United States. So, what should you do if you own a halfpenny green stamp? First, examine it closely. Check for tears, folds, stains, or fading. Look at the back for a watermark. Compare it to online guides or professional catalogs, like the Stanley Gibbons catalog. If you think your stamp might be rare or valuable, consider having it professionally appraised or certified. And remember, even if your stamp is not extremely valuable, it still holds historical significance. It connects you to a time over 100 years ago, when the British Empire ruled large parts of the world and postage stamps were essential for communication and commerce. That's what makes stamp collecting so special. It's not just about the money. It's about history, design, and discovery. To wrap up, the halfpenny green King George V stamp is one of the most iconic and widely collected stamps from the early 20th century. Whether you're holding a common example or a rare variety, it's a window into the past and a meaningful part of philatelic history. Its value today ranges from just a few dollars for common used ones to hundreds or even thousands for rare mint or error versions. If you enjoyed this deep dive into stamp collecting, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell icon so you never miss another upload. We bring you regular videos on coin values, stamp histories, and collecting tips that help you make the most of your collection. If you have a stamp or coin you want us to cover next, let us know in the comments below. We'd love to hear from you. Next up, the Malta 1 halfpenny stamp featuring Queen Victoria. This small piece of paper may look simple, but it carries with it a rich history tied to the British Empire, the island of Malta, and the world of 19th century postal communication. Whether you're an experienced philatelist or a curious beginner, you'll find this stamp has far more value than you might think, and not just in dollars. Let's begin with some historical context. This 1 halfpenny Malta stamp dates back to the late 1800s, during the reign of Queen Victoria, who ruled from 1837 to 1901. At the time, Malta was part of the British Empire, strategically located in the Mediterranean Sea. Due to its vital naval importance, Malta served as a key refueling and communication post between Europe, Africa, and Asia. As with many British colonies, Malta began issuing its own postage stamps, often showcasing the reigning monarch, and this brings us to the classic Queen Victoria profile featured on this stamp. Let's take a moment to appreciate the design. This stamp displays a finely engraved left-facing bust of Queen Victoria, surrounded by a laurel wreath, a traditional symbol of victory and honor. The word Malta appears boldly at the top, while the denomination, 1 halfpenny, is inscribed at the bottom in capital letters. The stamp is printed in a light brown or yellowish ochre ink, making it immediately recognizable. The engraving is classic Victorian, clean, elegant, and detailed. Even though it was small, this stamp served a powerful purpose, enabling communication between people and governments across vast distances. Now, you may be asking, why is this stamp important? For one, it's one of the earliest Maltese issues, and it reflects both British colonial power and local identity. At a time when printing and postal services were becoming more advanced, stamps like this symbolized the spread of literacy, administration, and empire. But beyond the history, let's talk about what really interests collectors: value. Not all Malta 1 halfpenny stamps are worth the same. Their value depends on 5 key factors: condition, rarity, watermark, printing errors, and demand. First, condition. The better the condition, the higher the value. If your stamp has sharp perforations, rich color, no tears, and minimal cancellation marks, it is considered fine or very fine. A mint condition stamp, one that was never used and still has its original gum on the back, is the most desirable and can be worth a great deal more than a used example. Second, rarity. This stamp had multiple printings, and some print runs were smaller than others. Also, stamps from specific years or with certain watermarks are more rare. The watermark is a design pressed into the paper, visible when held up to light or viewed with watermark detection fluid. The presence and type of watermark can change the value dramatically. Some rarer watermarks can turn a $500 stamp into a $1,000 collectible. Third, errors and varieties. Printing errors are a major attraction for serious collectors. If your stamp has a misprint, such as an inverted frame, missing letters, or off-center perforation, it could be extremely rare and therefore very valuable. Known error versions of this stamp have fetched hundreds of dollars at auctions. Fourth, the cancellation. Believe it or not, the postmark or cancellation mark can add or reduce value. A stamp with a light, clean postmark, especially if it shows a rare date or town, is often worth more than one that's heavily cancelled or smudged. Collectors love to see historic cancellations that tell a story of when and where the stamp was used. Now, let's break down the estimated market value in 2024, in US dollars. A heavily used stamp with damage or unclear design, around $100 to $300. A well-preserved used example with clear design and light postmark, between $500 and $1,050. A mint condition stamp, never used, with clean gum, around $2,000 to $5,000. A rare watermark or printing variety in fine condition, can range between $750 and $1,500, depending on catalog rarity. A certified error version, such as a misprint or misperforation, could reach up to $10,000 or even more, especially at stamp auctions or exhibitions. These values depend heavily on demand, rarity, and expert grading. If you believe your stamp might be rare, it's highly recommended to get it appraised by a philatelic expert or certified by a body like the Royal Philatelic Society or Malta Philatelic Society. So, how do you know if your stamp is worth serious money? Here are 3 quick tips. Inspect the condition carefully with a magnifying glass or stamp loupe. Check for watermarks using a watermark detector or watermark fluid. Compare with stamp catalogs like Stanley Gibbons or Scott Catalog for exact matches and varieties. Even if your stamp isn't rare, it still holds historical significance. It represents the early days of Malta's postal independence under the British Crown. It's a connection to a time when people waited days or weeks for letters and when stamps were gateways to the world. So, to wrap up, the Malta 1/2 penny stamp featuring Queen Victoria is more than just a small square of paper. Next up, the 3 halfpence stamp featuring King George V. It may be small, and its denomination of just 1.5 pence might seem modest today, but don't underestimate its importance, beauty, or collectability. In this video, we'll explore the stamp's historical background, design details, its role in the British Empire, and of course, how much it's worth in today's stamp market in 2024. Let's start with the historical backdrop. The stamp we're examining was issued during the reign of King George V, who ruled the British Empire from 1910 until his death in 1936. George V wasn't just another monarch, he had a deep personal interest in stamps. In fact, he helped grow what is now called the Royal Philatelic Collection, one of the most valuable stamp collections in the world. That alone makes stamps issued during his reign particularly interesting to collectors. The 3 halfpence denomination was introduced to meet specific postal needs during the early 20th century. At the time, 1/2D stamps were often used for sending postcards, printed matter, and small letters, particularly for overseas destinations within the British Empire. In a time long before email and smartphones, stamps like these were essential for everyday communication and held incredible practical value for people sending correspondence across the globe. Now, let's talk about the design, because this stamp is a masterpiece of classical engraving. At the center, we see a left-facing profile portrait of King George V. The engraving is crisp, detailed, and carries a sense of quiet authority. Surrounding the portrait is a bold oval frame, flanked on either side by the stamp's denomination clearly marked as 1.5 in stylized numerals. Just above the king's head, we see a regal crown, symbolizing the monarchy. Below the portrait, the words 3 halfpence are printed in capital letters, framed by 2 beautifully detailed sea creatures, which many collectors interpret as stylized dolphins or mythical fish, possibly representing Britain's maritime power. On either side of the central image, you'll find the words postage and revenue, indicating the stamp's dual purpose. It could be used to pay for mail or government duties. The stamp is most commonly printed in a rich reddish-brown or brick red color, though variations in printing over the years have resulted in a number of different color shades, each with its own level of rarity. So what makes this stamp particularly valuable to collectors? There are several key factors. Condition. Like with all collectibles, condition is everything. A stamp that has been torn, heavily cancelled, or discolored may only be worth a few cents. But if you have a copy that's in pristine condition, what collectors call mint, with original gum and no postmark, then you could be holding a stamp worth significantly more. Printing variety. This stamp was printed over several years, and in different runs, slight differences occurred. Some versions may have a slightly different color tone, for instance, dull purple-brown, bright rose red, or pale brick red, and some shades are far more rare than others. Identifying the exact color variety can significantly impact the value. Watermarks and paper types. Many King George V stamps come with hidden watermarks in the paper, used as a security feature. These could include designs like the royal cipher, block cipher, or multiple crown. Some watermark types are much rarer than others and can multiply the stamp's value. Errors and flaws, like with coins, misprints and flaws in stamps can make them far more valuable. Known errors might include inverted watermarks, double impressions, or misaligned text. If you find an error stamp, it could be worth hundreds or even thousands of dollars. So let's now discuss the estimated value of the 3 halfpence King George V stamp in 2024, based on current market trends and auction results. A heavily used, common version of this stamp, with a clear cancellation mark and no notable rarity, is typically worth around $50 to $200. A lightly used stamp with minimal wear, good color, and no tears or folds, can fetch between $30 to $100. A mint condition and used stamp with perfect gum and sharp centering may sell for $200 to $500, depending on its shade and watermark. Scarce color varieties or stamps with uncommon watermark patterns might sell for $750 to $1,500, especially if certified. Error stamps, such as those with inverted watermarks, printing misalignments, or unusual plate flaws, can reach upwards of $2,000 to $500, and in rare cases, even higher at auction. So what should you look for if you have a 3 halfpence stamp and think it might be valuable? Here are some expert tips. Examine the color under good lighting and compare it with reference catalogs like Stanley Gibbons or Scott. Check for watermarks using a watermark detection tray and fluid. Use a magnifying glass to inspect the details, especially the perforation edges and any text misalignment. Preserve it properly in a protective sleeve or a stamp album to avoid environmental damage. Whether you're a new collector or a seasoned philatelist, the King George V 3 halfpence stamp offers a fascinating blend of history, design, and potential value. And even if your stamp isn't particularly rare or expensive, it still holds incredible historical worth, a tiny printed piece of a bygone era when handwritten letters connected people across continents. So next time you come across one of these beautiful stamps, maybe tucked away in an old family album or a forgotten drawer, take a closer look. You might just discover a miniature treasure with royal connections. If you enjoyed this in-depth look at the 3 halfpence King George V stamp, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and leave a comment below telling us about your own stamp finds. And don't forget to click the notification bell so you'll be the first to know when we post more fascinating episodes about coins and stamps from around the world. Thanks for watching, and as always, keep collecting, keep learning, and keep exploring the past, one stamp at a time.